Hi guys, welcome back to yet another one of our YouTube videos. I'm so excited to be sharing this with you guys, and it's honestly been a long time coming. I know you guys have requested this video for literally ages and ages, and I'm sorry it's taking me this long to put it together, but we're finally in the works. We're finally sitting here recording this. So without further ado, let's get into it. My name is Yashka. I'm a PGY3 doctor currently working in Australia. I have worked 2 years in the NHS as an F1 and F2 doctor, after which I thought I just wanted a bit of a change, new sort of career path, and here I found myself in Australia. And a lot of you guys have been asking how I got here, the process, the application, the visa, all of that together. So I'm hoping I can bring you this video sharing all my information, tips and reviews. Okay, so just a couple of disclaimers. Nothing I will say is new at all the information is out there, and I'm hoping just to collate as much of it as I can and put it all in one place to make it easier for you guys to access. There's quite a few videos I watched, and specifically want to shout, and I hope I get the name right, Dr. Serena Taneja. Sorry if I've got the name wrong, but I watched her videos before coming to Australia, as I'm sure many of you guys have as well. They're quite informative, so do check them out if you get time as well. I've also used quite a few websites, but like I said, nothing of this is new. It's just trying to put all the information together in one place so you guys can have ease of access to it. Before I sort of go a bit further into it, it has been about 7 months since I've been living here, and things might have changed. So, when I start sharing all this information, even by the time I do put it out, please do your own research, because, for example, I know the visa process has already changed. I came under a different subclass of a visa, so 482, and I think that's changed to a slightly different subclass, which I'll try and get the details up a little bit later on when I talk about visa application processes. So it is probably better just for you guys to have your own background research as well as this supplementary video to go alongside it. All right, so let's get into it. What I want to talk to you in this video generally is about the Australian system, when to move, where to move to, how to apply for the jobs, all your pre-application documents, the pathways to apply because people come in from different backgrounds, the APRI-30 form that I had to fill out, which was very specific to where I came from and what I was doing, so it might not be relevant for everyone. The main bodies I dealt with during the process, AHPRA registration and the application itself, all the verification of the documents, and then essentially all the details within the documents to apply for, and essentially all the costs that it might take as well. And finally, the visa checks and all the tips and advice that I can try and give towards the end of the video as well. Why Australia specifically? When I was sitting down to really consider my career options going forward, this was after I had my wedding in January, and after I came back, I was really starting to think about, how I'm going to progress forward in life, what I'm going to do, what specialties I want to apply to. And I guess I was so busy with my own wedding, engagement, all the traveling, that I hadn't given this enough thought at that time. And when I came back after January, I thought, right, now's the time to really consider. So I then started thinking, do I even want to stay in the UK? Are there other options? At that time, the climate of the UK, between the junior doctor strikes, the pay, just being overworked, understaffed, it is difficult. And then just seeing online how different doctors around the world are getting paid for what they're owed, and they have a better work-life balance, and they're able to lead something a bit more worthwhile. And not that this will apply to everyone, this is just my opinion. I thought, okay, maybe I should just take a bit of a break and see what there is out there and what I can apply to, and just see what other healthcare systems are like, because I've only trained in the NHS. I only know what being a doctor in the NHS is like. I don't know what being a doctor anywhere in the world is like, and I wanted to see, is there a true difference? Is it true that it is insanely better? Are people selling their dreams that are not maybe not true? And I wanted to see for myself. I decided to see which countries I wanted to go to. Canada was one of the competing countries, but then I looked into Australia, and because it's so similar to the UK, and you don't have to give any exams, and it's our degree and qualification if you've graduated from a UK medical school is recognized by the Australian healthcare system. So again, the transition is smoother, everything else is smoother. Not that I'm saying any other country doesn't have that, but for me, I just thought there's a lot of similarities. A lot of people do go to Australia in their gap years and whatnot, and the path seems a little bit easier. So I thought, why not? Let's talk about what the Australian healthcare system is. It's kind of similar to the UK in the sense that you do have primary care, community services, and then secondary care, tertiary care. I currently work in a tertiary care centre, so it's super busy. We get all the very niche and specialty related stuff. In terms of the role you guys will be applying to, I'll delve into the hierarchy of the Australian system is. Again, similar to UK. So you've obviously graduated university, and then you do something called a PGY1, postgraduate year 1 year. This is where you do your internship, similar to someone doing an F1 year. And then you do PGY2, so this is a JHO, so junior house officer year. And then sometimes you can go from JHO to straight to specialty training, so like F2 to you start your specialty training, or you can come in as a SHO in a PGY3 year, so essentially like your F3 year is your year out, which is what many of you guys might be applying to. I certainly have applied to a PGY3 position as I thought this was quite related to me, and I was able to fulfill the roles they required, and it was suitable to what I wanted at that time as well. Sometimes you can also apply to a PGY4, so a PHO year, so a principal house officer. Essentially, this is where you have a bit more experience under your belt, and you'll be seen as a registrar that people can escalate all their issues. So all your juniors will be coming to you. If you feel confident and if you feel like you want to apply to that role, then sure, go ahead. But for me personally, I'd only done 2 years of sort of training as a doctor, and I think for me PGY training just felt a little bit more suited to my role. As a registrar level, I know a few people have got PHO jobs here, so for example psychiatry, if you feel confident enough to be able to differentiate, manage, and see all those conditions, and you're fine to be able to deal with it, then perhaps that might be something for you. After the PHO role, obviously then you get into official registrar training, and then you get into your specialty training. So hopefully this infographic sort of summarizes all this. But as I sort of talk more about the different roles, and when you apply, you probably get a bit more used to the terms as well. Also, just to highlight, between a PGY1 to PGY3, so intern, junior house officer, senior house officer, you will be classed as a resident medical officer, also in the UK previously known as a junior doctor, and then you'll go on to PHOs and then registrars. So all these different terms, they kind of overlap with one another, but it's just useful to know what they all mean. Just now want to brush up on when to move. This is probably the next step that I was thinking in my whole application process, because like I said, I started considering the time to make decisions around January time. So I could either then finish FY2 end of July, beginning of August, and go actually end of August. That would be a pretty quick turnaround. Or the Australian healthcare system, actually the academic year starts in January. So it is slightly out of sync to the UK, and that is something to bear in mind. So usually the academic year here starts middle of January, beginning of February time, whereas in UK, obviously it's August time till July time. So these are considerations to take in mind. I've linked the blog below that actually outlines the pros and cons very nicely. It's the Messly blog, and they also have a fantastic range of resources if you guys want to just go and check on there. But specifically where it says key dates for moving to Australia as a UK junior doctor, that blog really just goes through all the details of when you should be considering to move. And as highlighted in the blogs, I had my own personal thoughts on this as well. So if I was to move end of August, that would mean a pretty quick turnaround for me. So I'd finish F2, I would have downtime to spend with my family. For me, that was really nice actually. And then end of August, beginning of September, that's when I came to Australia. Things to bear in mind, obviously you won't be starting at the same time as all the other Australian doctors, so it might be a little bit harder to catch up, just getting used to the system. Personally, I didn't have that problem because I think where I was applying, they're quite used to international medical graduates coming over and working here, so my transition was probably a lot more smoother than expected. I guess if you want to spend a little bit more time in the UK with your family, with your friends, the next thing to consider is going in the following year in January. So you will finish in July, you'll then have about 5-6 months off, and I suppose between that time you probably would have to locum, you'll have to pick up a couple of shifts, or you can even go traveling, you know, depending on what your circumstances are like and what allows for you. It's essentially being able to see what's preferable to your role, to your timings, to your circumstances. Certainly for me, it worked out well that I went end of August and I was able to sort of pick up work straight away. Certainly where I'm working, I know the local market back in the UK, the local market was not that great. I think things had started to dwindle down. So again, these are some considerations to take. Another thing to consider is if you do come in February time, not only will you be committing to an F3 year, you'll also be committing to an F4 year, because most contracts are 12 months, unless you're able to find a 6-month contracts. Sometimes they are negotiable. So again, it is really down to how you guys are able to liaise with your employer and see how you're able to negotiate your start dates. So that is something to consider. Whereas if you start in August and you're planning to go back to the UK, it ties in with their academic year essentially. Sometimes jobs are easier to find at the beginning of the academic year in Australia. So they'll have their own campaigns put out every year. And usually you apply June, July time for a January start. However, when I applied, there were plenty of jobs, available to apply in August, because I think they do understand that there are a lot of UK graduates coming over, and they do sort of accommodate for an August start time as well. I know many of my colleagues that even started September, October time, even late as December, which will probably be leading into the January year anyway. So again, a lot of these things to consider. You probably need to see what's suitable for you, suitable for your circumstances, and what works best for you essentially. I will leave the sort of Messley blog description below. So now that you've decided, you know, where to go, you want to come to Australia, and when to move, the next thing was where in Australia to move to. I obviously came with my husband. You know, that was a huge factor in seeing where I want to go. For you guys, if you're coming with a friend, with a partner, if you've already got family out here, that might be the next couple of things to consider about where in Australia exactly you want to go. I specifically wanted to be in a city area. I didn't particularly wanted to be in an urban or remote area, but that's very, you know, that's my personal choice. Everyone has different choices. I know some people have gone to Darwin, which is quite a remote area. A few other people are in Perth, for example. So, you know, everyone has their own preferences about where in Australia they want to move to. I personally wanted to be in the city centre. I like the city lifestyle, and that's something that I wanted to, you know, take into consideration when applying here. And then obviously I had to factor in my husband's choice as well, about his work, about where he would best be able to find a job. Because we wanted the city, we looked more at east of Australia, and the top 3 cities, you know, this is the classic, was for us Brisbane, Sydney or Melbourne. And honestly, we just did a quick chat GPT for this. We looked at quite a few factors that would affect where we would be moving to amongst these 3 cities. We looked at the cost of living in each of these cities. We looked at the weather, which was quite important to us. And we looked at the general lifestyle, like, you know, is it quite a busy lifestyle, or are we able to do sort of things that are a bit more relaxing? And then we ultimately chose Brisbane. It was cheaper of the 2 cities, but it still gave us that city lifestyle. And it's literally known the Sunshine State, so Queensland. So for us, that was a big tick on the list. So moving on to the next part, you have decided where in the world you want to go to. You've decided when you want to move. You've decided where specifically you want to move. And now you want to apply for jobs. So let's get into that. So I applied for jobs in Queensland. Obviously, each state has its own application process, and even within Queensland, each hospital has its own way of applying. So for New South Wales and Victoria, they'll have their own processes. Unfortunately, I'm not too clued up about those states because I either only applied to one job there or considered Queensland as my main application. Quick side note, all the things I'm saying now and all the resources and everything that I've mentioned, I will make a Notion page, which I've actually made before with a few other resources. This will be quite useful to you guys because there'll be a bunch of things on there that will be easy accessible and all in one place, and it's probably easy for me to share with you guys as well. So I'll link that Notion page below. On that page will just be applying to Australia, like a little tab or a link on there. If you click on that, that'll open up a page, and hopefully I will have collated all the application process and details on there, including about what I'm about to say in the next couple of sections as well for this video. So like I said, when I applied mainly in Queensland, and I applied via something called the Smart Jobs website. Again, this will be linked, and I specifically typed in resident medical officer, and then it showed me a bunch of jobs that came up. I will leave a quick screenshot going through what I found when I researched for that job now. Things might be different when you search that job entry and see what comes up. Things are changing all the time. I specifically wanted to be in the medical pool, which means that I was rotating around for the whole year. But there are options to apply for ED job for 12 months. I personally am not that interested in ED. I don't have a preference for it. I'm more interested in general medicine, and rotating for me felt like a better idea because I didn't want to be stuck in one place the whole time. In case I didn't like it, in case there was something that I didn't enjoy, at least I had the option of moving on to the next rotation. That being said, I know some people, even when they have applied, they have got a job, you can still negotiate about what you want to do next. So that is something to bear in mind. So you can either apply via the Smart Jobs website or the RMO campaign. It might be too late to apply for the RMO campaign because that goes out in June and July. Some people tend to apply much earlier on, and they just email the hospitals directly. So what I did is I applied for the Smart Jobs website, and I also emailed a few hospitals as well. If I were you guys, I'd have a quick look at what hospitals are like around here. Do you want to be in a tertiary centre? Would you like to be in a secondary care facility? Or do you want to be a little bit rural and remote? And depending on like which hospital you apply, there'll be slightly different criteria. For the hospital that I'm working in now, there was actually no interviews. A lot of it was based heavily on making sure your documents were all signed off and you had good referees. For another hospital that I applied to, I did have an interview. They pretty much offered me a job on the spot at that time. And, you know, the process, it was very similar, but like I said, each hospital will have their own preference depending on how they run things. So we've talked about how to apply for the jobs, whether that's through the Smart Jobs website, if that's through an RMO campaign, or you've emailed the hospital directly. And congratulations, you've now ended up getting an offer. So the next step would be your pre-application documents. Certainly this is what happened for me. Once I got accepted, they asked for some certified documents to be sent through. So again, each hospital will be different. Each one will require their own documents. So please check before you end up paying for documents that do need to be certified. For me, I had to get my driver's license, my passport, my birth certificate, my primary medical degree, and my bank statement all to be certified. Now, I know there's a few people that carry this service out online, and there is a cost to it as well. So certainly when I looked at a few things online, I think they were costing between £100 and £130. But instead, I just went to my local solicitor and they cost me £25 in total. I think it was about £5 per document or something along those lines. This is probably the first time I had started to pay for my application of going to Australia. So I will do a running tally of what I had paid for, probably all in pounds, but I will put the Australian conversion there as well, because there are some things that I did also pay in Australian dollars, which I'll talk about a little bit later when it comes to it, because it might be sensible to get a bank account you can use globally. They also ask for a CV, but that CV has to be specifically in that hospital's format. So I can link my brief template of what I had used at that time, but again, the hospital you apply to may have a different format for it. Another thing was to get my vaccinations up to date and making sure I had everything on there. Unfortunately, I had to get a separate pertussis vaccine because I just didn't have any records. I'm sure I had it done a long time ago, but my GP didn't have any records for it. So this is one thing to sort of try and get up to date as well. Places to look for your vaccine record would be your GP, I guess, also your university. When I had my health checks done during medical school, they had all my vaccination records, some of which I got done during uni, which wasn't updated with my GP. A bit all over the place, but I eventually managed to get all of it and collated in one document. For the pertussis vaccine, like I said, I had to get it done separately, and it wasn't on the NHS, so I had to get it done privately, and it did cost me £124. So yet another cost I will add, maybe not for everyone, but this is what I had to personally pay for. These are a couple of the pre-application documents that I would start getting ready, because they will eventually ask, if not in the initial period, but a little bit further down the line. So the next one is about pathways to apply. So this video is probably very specifically targeted at British doctors coming over to Australia. I have had a lot of DMs and message requests about people coming from everywhere else across the world, including India and Europe, but unfortunately I don't know too much about if you have not graduated from UK essentially. So apologies in advance, and this may be very specific to a certain population, but this is a pathway I took, so I'm only able to report on my experiences. So essentially I applied via the competent authority pathway. So this is if you are UK GMC registered, which I suspect if you are a British doctor coming from UK to Australia, this is the pathway you will be taking. It's probably the smoothest and easiest pathway out of all the other pathways that you would be applying for. This is like a fast track route where you're already registered with the GMC. The Australian healthcare system recognizes where your qualification. You don't have to give any additional exams. So I know a lot of other people I've talked to, they need to sit the AMC1, AMC2. I don't even know too much about it because I didn't have to sit any of those exams because it's a recognized qualification. This will be a pathway that's probably the easiest route to apply via. I would quickly just brush through the other pathways. You've also got the standard pathway, which is, like I said, if you're not GMC registered, you do have to sit these 2 exams, and I've heard they can be quite expensive, so please do your own research on that. And you've also got the specialist pathway. So these are for consultants that will be applying and allows you to apply to the relevant royal colleges in Australia. Again, obviously, I don't have much experience for that, and I'm sure the majority of you will just be applying by the competent authority pathway. The next part that I want to talk about is something called the APRI-30 Form. This is a huge form that you need to fill out in order to apply for the Australian healthcare system. This form I will talk very briefly about now, but I'll also talk about in depth later because I just want to bring this up now as a document to refer to with the application process. You'll be working through this form, which will highlight all the important steps needed to take, and actually you can use this form as a template as to what to do next. But like I said, I'll come back towards the end of this, by which point I'm hoping we would have already ticked off a lot of the things needed on this form. So let's move on to the main bodies I dealt with during this application process and the governing bodies that are here in Australia. So you've got something called AHPRA. This is the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency. They are a regulatory board which is equivalent to the General Medical Council, the GMC in the UK. Registration and license to practice in Australia are held with AHPRA, and the role is very similar to the GMC, and I'll literally read out the quote, but it says to protect the public and set standards and policies that all registered health practitioners must meet. Unlike the GMC, I will say, which covers the regulating body for doctors, AHPRA actually covers all the other healthcare professions such as nurses, midwives, dentists, all the sort of, I think, other allied healthcare professions as well. So it all falls under this. You've then got something called the Australian Medical Council. This would seem something similar to, again, the GMC, but actually I don't think there's a direct UK equivalent of this. And it's an independent national body for medical education and training. When applying for registration, this body actually verifies all your qualifications, other documents through the EPIC portal, which I'll talk about that in a second. AMC then give a go-ahead to AHPRA to issue your registration. So then I move on to what EPIC is. So EPIC stands for Electronic Portfolio of International Credentials. And this is an online service provided by the Educational Commission for Foreign Medical Graduates, ECFMG, to verify the authenticity of the medical qualifications for IMGs, International Medical Graduates, who want to practice medicine in Australia. I know that's a lot I've just gone through, but please take the time to just pause the video, go back through what I said. But to try and summarize this for you guys, in order to get APRA registered, you need to get your AMC number. In order to get your AMC number, you need to get your documents verified via EPIC. So essentially, it'll be like working through backwards. What you actually need to do first is to get your documents verified by EPIC. And then the Australian Medical Council will see that, oh yeah, the documents are all valid and verified. You'll then get AMC number. And then the AMC number you actually fill out on the APRI-30 form. And then you finally get your APRA registration. So it's a bit complex. I appreciate that. With your own research and just going back to this video and just reading around, hopefully it will all make sense. So let's get through the EPIC verification very specifically. Like I said, this video is going into quite a lot of detail, but I'm hoping it will sort of make things a bit more clearer and demystify a couple of things in the application process. EPIC, like I said, is to complete primary source verification. It's an online service provided by the ECFMG, and essentially you need to be able to upload your passports, your photo, which is specified by the EPIC portal about the dimension, the size, the lighting, etc. And I think it's very specific, so just make sure you read that properly. Then be asked to do a mini interview, have to pledge and verify and make sure all the documents that you've uploaded are valid. I literally had to hold my hand up and repeat after the interview saying that all my documents are true and they are valid. And then once that's all done, it's accepted by the ECFMG. You get an EPIC ID number, which then you'll plug into your AMC account. So the verification itself costs $230 in total. EPIC verification, it actually took me 4 to 6 weeks. So I would have recommend early you start your application, the quicker the turnaround time you'll have for you, because some things just, no matter how quickly you start, they will just take that much time. Let's talk about what the AMC account is. You can probably do this at the same time as you're making your EPIC account as well, but you need to register for an AMC account and establish a portfolio. This again can take some time, and this cost me $648.16. Once you get your EPIC qualifications verified, you log back into your AMC account, you get your EPIC ID to link your verification with the EPIC account that you have. So linking your AMC to your EPIC account can take another 1 to 2 weeks. Once you uploaded all your bits and pieces and you're waiting for your EPIC and your AMC number and portfolio to be established, in the meantime you can apply for something called Certificate of Good Standing. This is one of the few free things during the application process that you can do, and essentially you just go on the GMC website and click on APRA when you apply for the Certificate of Good Standing, because they can then send your certificate to the APRA healthcare governing body. And then the next thing you want to do is apply for an international criminal history check. So again, this is all part of the APRI-30 form. It's very self-explanatory, but you have to apply via an APRA approved supplier. So either something called AIS or Fit to Work. I did Fit to Work, no particular reason. I think the AIS system crashed on me or something, so I ended up just going Fit to Work. That cost me $174.90. All right, so you've done all your little subsections of the APRI-30 form. So the next thing would be your SPPA-30 form. This is actually completed by the hospital and your employer, and they will send you this form separately. Make sure you have got that document as well, and ensuring you've got all the other pieces as well. Part D is obviously the payment, and that cost me 1,188 Australian dollars. Now we finally move on to applying for your provisional registration. You register the account and it is free, and you can finally upload all your forms and everything you've certified and all your details, including what you've done to get those details, including your EPIC number, your AMC number, your international history criminal check, because they'll have their own reference number. Everything you've done will be on that APRI-30 form. You upload all that onto the portal, including your supporting documents as well. And do not physically mail them. I know someone that did apparently, and just nothing comes of it, obviously. double check and then triple check and quadruple check if you have to, because make sure it's all appropriately placed, because some people, they've had to wait for 1 to 2 months before the application actually got approved. Some documents were missing, some documents weren't signed. I made sure I checked and my husband checked, and we made sure everything was signed and everything was appropriately titled. And actually my APRA registration only took 1 week to come back. I don't know if that was just lucky, I don't know if it's because all my stuff had been placed on time, not sure, but you can at least help yourself by making sure it's clear and it's all perfectly laid out for the person receiving the application. Once you're finally APRA registered, your hospital will then lodge your visa application and anyone coming with you. For my hospital, they just needed the acknowledgement that my APRA was registered and they received it. That was enough for them to be able to lodge the visa application for me. And this has to come from the hospital, obviously. You can't just apply for the visa yourself. I won't spend too long in this section because, like I said, it has changed. When I applied at that time, I applied via the 482 subclass, and my husband was able to come with me on that subclass visa. You will probably need to still do the health check for whatever the new subclass visa is currently. There's a section where it says healthcare exam, I think, on there. I followed through the steps to see if I needed to get a healthcare examination done. And for me, I did, but for my husband, he didn't, because obviously he's not in the healthcare sector. So he doesn't need to be applying for sort of health checkups or examinations. What I did at that time was that I lodged my visa process and I preemptively also applied for a health checkup, because I knew my visa process eventually would be asking that for me. So if I did this in advance, it would actually speed up the process. Once I applied for my health checkup on the website, it will prompt you which location to go. Closest one to me was in London, and it cost me £380 altogether. I got a basic examination, which includes blood test and a chest x-ray. I know a few other people who got a few more tests on their background, so please make sure you check what you need to do. You don't end up overpaying it either. The visa, there's actually a separate police check. It's the AHPRA police, for which me and Shrov and my husband had to do separately each. It can take a while to come back, but I know you can pay a little bit more to get the AHPRA police check expedited. I haven't actually written down here how much it was, but I will pop the cost up here as well for it. Our visa actually took a really quick time to come around. It was a very short turnaround and it was only 3 days. So I remember sending it off on Friday and receiving it on the Sunday morning, I think. And I remember this vividly because I was on a family holiday in Portugal, and I just remember getting this email to say that our visa had been approved. I was just so elated and I was so excited. I just remember that. So the visa at that time, which I know has, I think, even doubled, but at that time it was 1,495 Australian dollars per person. It's excluded because my hospital reimbursed my flight and part of my accommodation when I arrived here. So I'm not going to include the flights in my one because, like I said, it's going to be reimbursed. That is the whole process. I know that's a lot of detail, but I'm hoping it's actually a lot more useful for you guys. I'll link all this up on my Notion page as well, where it will just go through all the details of the things that I've talked about. All right, so let's talk about the total cost. So this is how much the APRA application costs, including all the EPIC verification, the AMC number, the international criminal history check, registration with APRA. This is the cost of the visa. So I haven't added it all up, so that's why I can't even tell you guys right now, but I will leave the number on there, and I'm actually quite intrigued to see how much it costs me, because I probably I should have added this up before. But like I said, flights and accommodation are reimbursed, so not included in here, and that's probably something you guys should consider in your initial investments. I think for us, a one-way ticket between me and Shrom was about £600-700 each. Factor that into your initial cost, because like I said, it is an expensive process initially, but things do start paying off later on. Okay, so the final section, some tips and advice. Please leave some comments down in the below if you've gone through this process and you have anything else to offer as well. Start early. That's probably the best thing I can say. I will leave my timeline of how I applied in that Notion page. It was around, like I said, around January, February time when I started applying. Currently it's April right now. So if you guys are thinking to apply, I don't think it'll be too late actually if you guys are really on it or prompt with it. That's if you want to go in August. If you want to go a little bit later as well, still not too late to start. And of course, if you guys want to go in January, definitely give you enough time. So start early. Make sure you guys go through the checklist. ensure all the important documents that have been mentioned, how you've saved it in a folder somewhere else as well. Absolute nightmare would be that you have forgotten to attach a specific document or it's not certified and you will have to go through resubmitting the application again. Can actually help is also making sure all your documents that you will be eventually uploaded are titled correctly, so it makes it easier for you obviously and the person receiving your application to know exactly what to look for. Ensure all the important documents that have been mentioned or you've collated or you've certified, put them all in one folder. Make it easier for yourself, because when you come back to reference it, when you have to upload it, at least it's all in one place. Keep track of everything you have paid for, because you might be able to claim it back from the hospital itself, or also you can claim it back via tax rebate when you come and live in Australia for a year. I personally will try and recover some of the costs that I have paid towards. So for example, my APRA registration, everything I've done for that APRI-30 form, I will try and claim back. Normally the financial year, I think here runs from June to July. So I haven't done that yet, but I'll keep you guys updated to see how that process goes, and I'll let you know how that comes along. Keep a to-do list as well. I'll put my to-do list on Notion so you guys can try and ticking off some of the stuff you've done or keep on track. So I hope this has been super useful for you guys. I will leave all the links and the content that I've talked about in that Notion page. And I know despite, you know, all the costs and everything, overall it is worthwhile coming, and I think eventually it does pay off. I suppose it depends on how you look at things, and I would probably do a separate video on sort of the pros and cons, or how life is coming to Australia and the reality of settling in here. Because as much as you see things online and how things are significantly better, I think there are some things that should be taken into consideration when coming here. I will probably talk about that on my next video. Let me know if there's any adjustments that need to be made in this video, and I hope this has been really helpful to you guys. Thank you guys for staying tuned. I hope you guys have a lovely rest of the week.